So what advice do you have for those folks who feel like they're pressured to do something, because their system is sunsetting and the vendor is like, oh, we're going to turn off everything. Where do you start? What do you do?
Those are almost always, I'm not going to say they're false, but their goal is to start working ahead of time to be able to transition you over to a new platform that they've developed, usually at a higher cost. Not always. They can find a way to make it net neutral, or maybe even save you some money. But once they've developed that product, they need to be able to move people to that product quickly so they can maximize their investment on it. So they're going to use a little bit of scare tactics. I'll be nice. I'll say scare tactics to try and get you to move over to there quickly. Even in a situation where a vendor is like, no, we are not going to support this product anymore. There are folks out there that will be able to sustain and support that product during the transition.
Mm-hmm.
When folks select a new ERP system, it's really easy to focus on the new product and ignore the current one,
Mm-hmm.
even to the detriment of the organization. You're sending all your resources towards this new implementation. No one's watching the old system. No one's keeping it up to date. No one's maintaining it. No one's developing the relationship with the vendor or continuing the relationship with the vendor. And the problem is your staff's going to have to live with that old system for 12 to 15, 18 more months. And that's where you're doing your day-to-day workflow. That's where you're
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of your data management. That's where you're doing a lot of your decision making and your financial reporting. That still needs the care and attention that it got before, but now this layer of new ERP on top of it. But given those situations, if you do have a vendor or the client's maybe taking a little too much time, and they know the clock is ticking and they have to be off this by the end of the calendar year, there are folks out there and solutions out there that'll allow us to be able to maintain that product and get you all the way through go live onto the new one. And if a lot of times that gets the vendor to back off and go, well, I think we can support this for one more year or
Mm-hmm.
6 more months. But if they are serious and they really are not able to help you with that product and do the maintenance on it, you can find folks that will do that in the short term and sign a 3 month or 6 month contract to be able to get that to continue. So vendor threats don't resonate with me, because when I worked in local government, a lot of times I felt like I was being sold something rather than being told the truth. It's one of the reasons also why we do what we do for our clients. So very rarely are those vendor threats legitimate. I mean, for them to be able to turn off a massive system for a massive county, the public relations disaster that would be is just completely unacceptable. So you need someone like us to go through there and comb through and figure out what really is and is not going to happen here on December 31st of this year. Is this system really going to evaporate? Or is this just the vendor trying to push their Q4 sales and get you signed on to a new product?
Right. Maybe we should go live on vendor threats. And by the way, we love our vendor friends. They support us in every aspect, and we are not trying to talk badly about any one vendor. This is just what we've seen internally as we go through some of these projects. The other one I love is, this offer is only available to you for the next 2 weeks. You better sign on the dotted line right now.
Yeah, or the 5% discount will no
Yeah,
longer apply as of
right,
October 1st, and
right.
it's it, what happens behind the scenes is what usually occurs with clients is they've gotten the funding approval, but it hasn't been approved by their governing body, or there's a person who's out sick, or procurement needs to button up this document, or contract negotiations
Hmm.
are still not complete. These are tons of valid reasons as to why local government is not able to issue you a PO, which is what most vendors are looking for. Is, oh, I've got the PO, now I can start. It's not because they're slow and they're dragging their feet. That happens sometimes, but most of the time, there's something that's not complete that needs to be completed internally, and then we will issue you your PO. So software vendors have to understand, I get it. You want to have your Q3 numbers in, especially if you're going to get a commission check. I know you really want that, but just be careful with how you try and motivate clients to get that done sooner rather than later, because this year we've dealt with 2 clients that got very upset with the software vendor, an
Hmm.
otherwise good relationship,
Right.
simply because the salesperson was calling every day and going, hey, that 5% discount evaporates October 1st. And it's like, oh, come on, you know, that's
Right.
this is the way things happen, and you know that. So we don't need to go to tactics like that to be able to get things moving along.
Yeah, moving forward. So we do have some folks in the comments. Hey, Clay. Hey, Katie. Hey, Brent. Hey, Mikey. Mikey says it starts with having a vision, then thinking about the outcomes. This is so true. I think too many people in general think about the benefits and the outcomes first instead of why they're actually committing to the process, which is the vision.
Yeah, so a lot of technology vendors, especially when they're offering you a product to replace one of your workflows,
Hmm.
they're guessing at your particular needs, and then they're taking that and they're framing it in the aspect of, hey, this is a really nifty system. It does this. It has this kind of reporting. It has this kind of automation. Um, but there's so many cases we've seen where the technology was really cool, but it didn't move the needle. And a
Right.
year later, early AI adoption. I'll take on that one. Folks were starting to jump on the bandwagon of AI is this great tool. It's going to modernize the way we do things. We don't have to go to a software company to get this figured out. We can fire this up today and start using it, except they aligned it with processes that either didn't matter or looked great, but like I said, didn't move the needle. And a year later, you feel incredibly let down. You're like, we spent all that time and the energy and that political capital and change management for a product that at the end of the day, it looks really nifty, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't
Right.
enhance the mission or service delivery of the organization. And technology vendors are pretty excited about their product. You have to be able to sort through, okay, that's a poor assumption that you're making. This is actually what this needs to solve. You
Hmm.
need to be able to do that. Otherwise, it looks like, oh, this is great. Here's the check. Let's implement it. Let's turn it on. And a year later, it's like, didn't provide us any benefit whatsoever. And now, when you find the right solution, and now you got to go back to your governing body, they're like, here we go again. You,
Yeah.
you lose a lot of credibility doing things like that.
You do, and that's a great point. If you all have not seen our YouTube video on AI being another technology implementation, please go out to our YouTube channel and follow AV on Instagram because he just got back from a conference from the Government AI Coalition, and he talks about what he learned from that conference, and then also that AI should be treated no differently than any modernization project in terms of, excuse me, you still have to do the groundwork. You still have to identify those outcomes. You still have to understand what you're trying to achieve. It's not a race. It's not a race.
Yeah, well, and I also want to point out I've been beating up on technology vendors a little bit on this. It's important to recognize that even elected governing bodies, elected officials, have this very traditional approach to things that we call, instead of ready, aim, fire, it's ready, fire, aim. A lot of governing bodies like to do that because they also think that they're being proactive to when someone comes to a council meeting and talks about how I can't pay my water bill online. They will jump towards, well, let's find some funding for something like that. There's obviously public support for it, and I would like IT to be able to run this down.
Mhm.
That is very much of a ready, fire, aim solution. So it's not just technology vendors, but the problem is that does set up a perfect environment for a technology vendor to go, I've got a solution for being able to take portal payments on the water bill, and I can have that live for you in 30 days. And that's not a bad thing, but you really need to vet as to what you're going to get for that, because that's a great claim. But again, with all the other things we talked about, is it actually going to be a useful product in the long run? Or are they charging you a ridiculous amount of money to be able to run that portal for you? And then therefore now you have something that's an enterprise fund
Mhm.
service delivery that starts the funding starts dwindling off significantly because now they're losing a lot by paying this other firm to run the portal. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of issues that actually come from the elected bodies themselves that prefer to quickly react, throw money and resources at it, give you something in 30 days, and that's a lot of the challenge we work with clients as well. Is let's slow down, let's tie this to a vision. Let's make sure this is exactly what you need. Let's make sure it's
Yeah.
sustainable funding wise and resource wise.
And let's have a plan and a roadmap and prioritize those things. So because maybe you fix, the payment issue, but then that causes other issues like funding dwindling or whatever else, right? So long-term vision is key. Before we wrap up, Robert, Clay asks, when a tenured public sector employee digs in their heels fighting against a major technology upgrade for the org, who usually wins and why?
It's a great question because I was just talking with a client 3 weeks ago about this in particular. I'm going to use I'm going to use the consultant term that we haven't used yet. It depends, and I'll be honest with what this client was telling me. Their concern was they needed to figure out who they actually can bring along on the change management, um, versus folks that they know this person's been very clear. Um, I'm not going to participate in this. I don't believe in this new system. You're not going to train my staff. You're not going to implement the modules. I want my reporting done the old fashioned way. There's a whole variety of things in there. The reason why I say it depends is because sometimes those are directly elected. A county treasurer, in some cases, is directly elected by the people. So
Mhm.
therefore, it's very difficult to have sway, or to be able to bring this person to the table because they don't answer to a county manager particularly, or even a county governing board.
Right.
They report directly to the people on things like that. So the dynamics are all over the place as to what is going to be possible and what's practical, and what makes sense. In a lot of cases, this is easily resolvable by just talking with the person, and making sure they understand what this ERP replacement is and isn't, because the isn't is the area where everyone has their insecurities. I'm not going to be able to understand this new system. I don't want to change the way my workflow currently works because I just figured out how to do it in the first place. Please don't change my world. That's the reason why there's a lot of that. A lot of that is solvable. Occasionally, you will run into a person where they're just like, I'm simply not going to get on board with this. And sometimes you find that person a new position in the organization. Sometimes they announce that they're going to leave within 6 months. It can vary, but it gets a little unique from organization to organization, and it winds up coming down to political capital and political credibility is the direct way of saying it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I I'm very simplistic, but I think open communication, right?